What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Tay, and today we're gonna be breaking down Travis Hunter. Um, yeah, I'm gonna be breaking these down. I just decided to do, breakdowns and mock drafts and things like that around this time of the year because I've been doing it dolo, for the past few years, and I've been pretty good. Um, I wish I could show proof, which I may insert in this video, but I had BTJ and Neighbors over MHJ last year or Marvin Harrison last year, and it was real controversial at the time. But as the season progressed, a lot of people have those two over, Marvin Harrison Jr. And it's a lot of examples like that where I'm kind of like, I don't know if people watch Chris Sims, but I'm kind of like that in terms of, just how do I say it, just kind of going to the beat of my own drum. So we're gonna be breaking out some Travis Hunter. I'm gonna be, giving my thoughts on him, the pros and the cons, things I look for in a receiver, and yeah, we'll go from there. So video already started. These are basically just run after catches, which I look for in receivers. And as you can see, I mean, once he gets the ball in his hands, it just turns into a playground. And I'm really, 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 really big on people or receivers making the first guy miss. As you can see right here, just a simple, 5 yard hitch that he could take to the crib, making a guy miss. Two guys miss actually. Touchdown. Like, these are things that he did at an elite level. I wouldn't say it was, elite, elite, like, elite neighbors last year or Jamar Chase a few years ago when he came out, but it's very, very good and it's definitely the best in his class. This is, he reminds me of JJ. That's a play that reminds me of JJ. The way that he just went across the middle of the field, caught the ball, the way that he runs, but he also got to be careful of, taking hits, and we'll talk about that a little later. Like I said, once he gets the ball in his hands, it just turns into a playground. Anytime he gets the ball in his hands, he's looking to make that first guy miss. So that's definitely, plus. It's taking the screen pass. They did a lot of screens. This is just turning nothing into something. Like, not a lot of, people in this class can just do this. You'll be surprised. I see a lot of people get tackled behind the line or at the line of scrimmage on plays like that. This is a simple, Jesus Christ. This is just a simple, slant. He stopped in the middle of the zone, was able to see where the defender at and go the opposite way on the hop, get the first down. That's just amazing. And it's just like what I was saying, just turns into a playground, just playing with the defense. Right here is just making a guy miss going across the middle of the field. I would think he runs a 4.3. I'm not sure if he's going to run a 4 at his pro day, but has, really good speed, especially playing defense and offense. He has to have that great speed. Like I said, these are just plays that, after the run plays or yards after the run plays, where he catches this, stays in bounds. And we're also going to talk about that later on, his awareness. This is a play, and he loves to do that. He loves to catch the ball in the air so he can kind of pivot if he has to, like this, and then just pivot off like that. And he got an extra, 20 yards after this play. This is just taking a short pass and getting another 15 yards after the play. Like, this is stuff that every receiver can't do, and it's very like little. If you're not really paying attention to receivers doing that, you're not really gonna notice. But that's what separates the good from very good and the very good from elite. So that's definitely what I look at. People like I said, like Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill. Any of those guys that can just get yards after the catch. That could separate them from, or we could just use last year's example. A Malik Neighbors or Brian Thomas Jr. This is just an amazing play right here. But Malik Neighbors or Brian Thomas Jr. making plays after the catch, whereas Marvin Harrison Jr. necessarily can't do it on their level. And that's why I had Marvin Harrison Jr. ranked 3, and Malik Neighbors ranked 1. And Brian Thomas ranked 2. It was because of other things too, but a lot of it was, what do you do once you catch the ball? What do you do once you catch a 5 yard slant? Can you take it 50 yards? Can you take it 80 yards? Or are you going to get tackled by the first person that tackles you, that tries to tackle you? See what I'm saying? Travis Hunter, he gets tackled the first time sometimes, but a lot of times as well, he's able to make a guy miss. Like he just did right there. This was in the bowl game. Great play, making two guys miss, breaking another guy's ankle, strolling into the end zone. Heisman pole, Heisman pose, well deserved Heisman. He had a great year, man. Had a really great year. I liked how he had a better year receiving wise last year than he did the first year at Colorado. Shows improvement, 2 years in that system. And this is just going up and snagging. This is just going up and snagging the ball. He has really good hands, really sure hands. And so this with these videos, these next few videos is about to be him just snagging the ball, him, you know, getting it out the air. Here is a PI. Literally is about to get slammed. Literally does get slammed by his neck and still catches the ball. Like the way he contorts his body, the way he adjusts his body to the ball, the way he stays in bounds, his awareness and just everything. Now that is was very elite. That's just coming to the ball. This is a very simple play. A little 10-yard hitch, but a lot of receivers would just stay there. They would stay at the where they cut at, or they would stay at the first down. He came up to the ball. He snatched the ball, rips it away out the air. He's ready to catch the ball. Like he's not waiting on the ball. This he caught. He adjusted to the ball and he caught with his body, or with his arms, but he had to catch it like that. He just knows how to catch the ball in what situations. It's kind of like a quarterback. You can't just throw bullets all the time. You have to know how to throw the ball in certain situations. Whether to put touch on it or whether to, throw a bullet, or do I have to throw it over the linebacker, or do I have to throw it between people. It's kind of like that with a receiver. Do I have to look at this amazing play? Everybody remember this play. But it's kind of like a receiver. Like, should I catch it with my arm? Should I catch it with my body? Should I catch it with my hand? Should I snag it out the air? When I snag it, should I, rip it away? Should I turn around? Is it a safety or another DB or a linebacker coming? Should I catch it and get down? It's just different things. But one thing I would say, if there's any negative on Travis Hunter, I wouldn't put this in here. This is only one play, but there was like 4 to 5 plays during the season, and granted he does have a lot of targets, coming his way, and we'll also talk about that hit as well. But he does have a lot of targets coming his way, but just making sure that he catches the ball before he thinks about running. There was, like I said, 4 to 5 times where he thought about running before the catch. But that can be, fixed. And like I said, it was 4 to 5 times. I'm not sure how many targets he had. And, just make sure, like I said, that he gets down and get out of bounds. Um, so he won't get hurt. He is about, 6 feet, probably 190. But he plays bigger than that, and that can be a good thing, with him in the red zone. He's able to, jump in there. I know he has a crazy vertical, a crazy broad jump, crazy three cone. He's very explosive. Like I said, probably runs a 4.3. Um, but he is skinny in stature. He is slim in stature. So he just has to make sure that he protects himself so he can be able to play the whole game like how he wants to do. Play on defense. I'm not gonna say, oh, he should play receiver with defensive packages. He should play defensive pack, or full time defense with wide receiver packages. I say play him full time. He played full time in high school. He's played full time in college. Yes, there are lesser competition, level of competition. You're not playing an NFL player every weekend, or every week that you play. But I say let him play it, and if he says, hey, I would like to scale it back a little bit, or if he's getting fatigued a lot, or if he's having some injury problems, then that's when I would say address the which side should we do packages on. But I think he's a great receiver. I think he's a great defensive back, and I know he wants to play both sides. If Dion was his coach in the NFL, he would play both sides full time, and he trains for that. He's put his body through all through all he needs to do, through all the conditioning that he needs to do, and he can definitely do it. It's just a lot of people doubt it because nobody has really came in the league saying, hey, I'm a DB as equal as I am a receiver. I'm a receiver as equal as I am as a DB. But I think if he goes to the right place, I think a lot of people not talking about that. It's about going to the right place, going to a coach that understands him, going to a coach that listens to him, going to a coach that's gonna work around him. Because like I said, if it was Dion, he would play full time on both. And I think he knows the importance of that. That's why he went to Florida State and literally, well, he didn't go to Florida State, but he committed to Florida State and literally switched over because he realized Dion is one of the best cornerbacks, if not the best cornerback ever, and also will work with him and, played some receiver as well, played multiple sports, did his own thing. So it was very like a perfect match, like a perfect storm, especially with him and Shador. In the NFL, you're not going to be able to choose your team, but hopefully he goes to the right team. Even if he doesn't, even if he plays one side of the ball, 75% of the time, he'll still be great on that side of the ball. So I think this is definitely a top five pick. Like I said, I comp him to JJ. And yeah, that's my Travis Hunter breakdown. Make sure y'all give me a like, comment, subscribe. We're definitely going to be coming with more breakdowns. I think this year I'll do about 15 receivers, 10 to 15 running backs, about 5 to 7 quarterbacks. It's not a lot of quarterbacks this year that I really want to watch. I like watching the first 3 rounds, guys that are projected to go in the first 3 to 4 rounds. So, yeah, I won't do offensive linemen, but I will do defensive linemen. I also do corners, um, safeties, linebackers, everybody on defense, and basically everybody on the field except offensive linemen. I'll do tight ends, I'll do running backs, I'll do wide receivers, I'll do quarterbacks, and everybody on defense, just not offensive linemen, because I can't really tell if they're. I can tell if they're good, but I can't tell how that'll translate to the next level. So I'm not even going to try to fake it and break down stuff. I'm just I'm not saying I even know football like that. I love football, but I can't break down a defensive every defensive coverage and every formation and what this means on this down. And I can't do all of that, but I can just see potential in a player and see the things that I look for. And like I said, I've done this in years past. I had Malik Neighbors and BTJ last year, over a Roma Doomsday, over a Marvin Harrison Jr. when it wasn't popular. I've had quarterbacks over certain quarterbacks when it wasn't popular, and I've been wrong too. I wasn't big on Bryce Young. I had C.J. Stroud over him. And so far C.J. Stroud is playing better. But I've also had, I'm trying to think of people I've had over certain people, and I end up being wrong. So I'm not saying I'm wrong, but I just want to really document these and put these on video, so years down the line I could say, hey, if I ever get into to sports or being an analyst or anything like that, I could say, hey, this is my track record. I had this person over this person. I seen this when they was in college before they became a star. This person was a projected second, third round pick. I had them the best in the class, and they end up becoming the best in the class. So it's just things like that that I just want to document and get out there. And I love doing this. I love, like I said, I love football, and so we're gonna be coming with this. This is the first episode on this channel. Make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe. Click the description so y'all can see my social media in there. And I try to do these every day. If not every day, you should expect at least 5 of these a week. I try to, shoot for 7, but draft is close. And we're also coming with mock drafts too. I think I'm going to do about 3 this year. One, what I would do, one, what I think teams would do, and then one with trades. So, stay tuned. We definitely got a lot coming. And until next time, we out.